My childhood.
Welcome to episode 10 of Ruin My Childhood. I'm Kat.
And I'm Mike.
And today's episode is Are You Afraid of the Dark? Ooh. I remember loving this TV show. I've always loved creepy stuff, and I liked just being terrified when I was a kid. How about you?
I definitely remember watching this show. I can only vividly remember one episode, but I do definitely remember liking this episode. And I think it was creepier than Goosebumps. I watched Goosebumps and this, but I read all the Goosebumps books, so I think Goosebumps wasn't as scary because I knew what was going to happen. But with this one, because it wasn't based off any books as far as I know, it may or may not have been, but I definitely didn't read the books that they were based off. So I remember this one being creepier than Goosebumps, so I'm really interested to watch this one again.
I definitely didn't watch as much of Goosebumps. I watched a couple of episodes, but I feel like those were more the short story format, and R.L. Stine's format is a little bit more campy, whereas Are You Afraid of the Dark was a lot of like developing urban legends. So it's sort of like that aspect of when you've heard rumors of something from an urban legend and then you see it on screen, it just makes it that much more scary for you.
Yeah, so you're definitely right. The Goosebumps was very corny, like monsters come to life and, scary puppets, and it was very like melodramatic. And this, I do definitely remember being darker in tone. Like the only episode that I remember, and I hope we watch this one, is the one where like the pinball machine game comes to life and there's like a kid's trapped in the mall and he's got to fight like the night and everything like that. And I definitely remember thinking like, man, I would not want that to happen to me when I was a kid.
Right, they were terrifying. And I actually don't really remember any plot points for any episodes. I just remember loving this show and it being super creepy. I definitely remember the intro, though. That intro was pretty rad.
What's the intro? I don't remember the intro. Like I remember, like I feel like it was like a mostly black screen with like things floating across, but I could be wrong.
Oh no, they're sitting around the campfire and they throw it's probably Tang into the fire and it. Oh,
that's right.
Did you ever do that when you were camping? Like it was
I never went camping as a kid.
That someone had to throw some Tang into the fire and do Are You Afraid of the Dark thing.
No, I never did that because I didn't go camping for the first time until I was like 19, 20 years old.
Oh, and then you got cornered by a wild boar.
Oh yeah, that was great. But yeah, I'm really interested in watching this series, we're recording some episodes early, so hopefully we can watch more than like the 3 or 4 that we normally watch and like really get in depth in this series.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. And it's one of those series where there are a lot of actors who did this show and then got big later.
Like I think Ryan Gosling's in an episode.
Yeah, he's definitely in one.
The Goose.
I mean, like, I wish I remembered more about it, but that's pretty much all I've got to go off of, that I really liked it, and it definitely creeped me out. I remember them being legitimately creepy. Not like a thriller type thing. I remember a lot of the episodes don't really resolve at the end. They leave that element of mystery. They kind of leave you hanging, like whatever is out there in the story is still out there.
No, totally. Like I'm pretty sure like most of them don't end happy. Like the pinball episode that I do remember, I'm pretty sure that like the whole time he's trying to like rescue a princess, but it turns out like the princess is actually like evil and like traps him in the pinball machine. I could be wrong.
Ugh. I live for that lack of resolution. There are too many happy endings out there.
This was a Nickelodeon TV show. So
Nickelodeon was so much riskier than other networks. I love it. I am ready to watch some Are You Afraid of the Dark? How about you?
Let's do it. Let's turn off the lights and do it. And by do it, I mean watch Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Sure. All right, we are back from watching 3 fabulous episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark? First, we watched The Tale of the Pinball Wizard, then The Tale of Station 109.1, and then The Tale of the Chameleons. What did you think, Mike?
Well, the first off, I'm going to do something that I very rarely do and admit that I got something wrong. Because I definitely remember seeing an episode with Ryan Gosling, and I really actually remembered the Tale of the Pinball Wizard. Like, that was the one I was talking about a lot, but I thought it was the same episode. It wasn't. So Ryan Gosling was actually in the 109.1 story, and the Pinball Wizard was completely unrelated to him. So I'm just going to start off and say I was wrong. I made a mistake.
Wow.
But
I was wondering what that would sound like.
it was weird. I don't like doing what I just did, but I did it. If we're going to be doing a podcast, we've got to be, 100% on this, all right? We got to be real and honest. So
let's talk about the Tale of the Pinball Wizard. Do you want to do a quick summary? You're good at those.
Yeah, so basically in a nutshell, this episode, there's this kid, I don't remember his name, but he goes to the mall, and he goes and starts taking... White kid number one. Starts taking like coins out of a wishing well in a mall. Security guard kind of chases him around, and then he goes to this store where he like knows the owner and he plays like pinball games. I don't know what the store was. Like, it didn't make any sense. It seems like it was doing repairs, but it also seems like it did like sales. Like, it had a bunch of statues in it, had a pinball machine in it, and the boy's trying to get a job, and the guy's like, "No, you're just gonna play pinball all day." So this guy goes on lunch and gives the boy a chance to, run the shop for an hour while he's on lunch, but he immediately breaks the rules and goes and plays this new pinball machine that's in the back.
That he specifically told him not to touch.
Exactly right. So this girl comes in and is like, "I need to pick up my music box." And he admits, he's like, "I don't know where it is. I don't work here, but the guy should be back in a bit." He goes back to playing the pinball game, and then presumably hours later, he walks out to the mall and it's closed. And the game semi came to life. So the pinball game is supposed to have 3 levels. The mall was a 3-story mall. So each floor of the mall represented one of the levels in the game. So there was like zombies who were afraid of water, and then he had to fight like this guy with a mall, and then he had to go up and then he had to try to save the princess and put her on the throne. And then it turns out that no matter what he did, he's stuck in the game. So because he broke the rules and he played this magic pinball machine, he's stuck playing this game for the rest of his life. So as soon as he beat the game,
jerk, white kid number one.
He went back to the beginning and had to start playing it again, and it ends with the shopkeeper like looking down over the glass, and you see the kid running around in a little miniature mall, and then a giant pinball marble is chasing him.
Forever.
It's funny that you did that remark, because that'll come up later.
It will.
So that was that episode in a nutshell.
What did you think of this one? Should we just start off with like the warm feels from the beginning?
Yeah, what did you think? I definitely noticed you smiling at the beginning with the theme song.
It made me so happy. Like, I remember really liking this show, but I didn't expect it to make me so happy just to watch it and watch the intro. Something that was like really funny. I don't know if it was this episode or another one, but there was like a pretty consistent group of kids. I think they would cycle out the older ones throughout different seasons, but there was a pretty consistent group of kids who would gather for
the Midnight Society.
Intro, the Midnight Society. Anyway, this Midnight Society also includes, and I don't know his name, I should have written it down, the guy from Mean Girls, where...
Oh, the Butter My Biscuit guy?
Not what? Is your muffin... Is it muffin? Is your muffin buttered?
Oh, yeah, that's right, because they couldn't say Butter My Biscuit.
No, the only reason that line made it in was because originally they wanted it to be, "Is your cherry popped? Would you like us to assign someone to pop your cherry?"
That's right.
But it would have bumped the whole movie, Mean Girls,
to R-rated.
Up to like a higher rating. So they had to say, "Is your muffin buttered? Would you like us to assign someone to butter your muffin?" And like, then what's her face walks up and tells him to go shave his back. Anyway, he is in this, which was kind of funny. And we were expecting to see, I think, a few more people than we actually did. I think we were expecting this to kind of be like the X-Files, where there were a lot of actors starting out were in it. So I wrote down a few. There was Alicia Cuthbert, Melissa Joan Hart, Tatiana Ali, Will Friedle. I don't even know who that is.
That's the older brother in Boy Meets World. And he's also the voice of Terry McGinnis in Batman Begins.
Tia and
Or not
Tamara
Batman Begins,
Mowry,
Batman Beyond. Sorry.
Ryan Gosling, who you mentioned
Goose.
before. Daniel DeSanto. Oh, that's who it was. The guy from Mean Girls. Jay
Baruchel.
I can't stand him. His
I love
voice
that
is
guy.
so annoying. Emily Van Camp. I don't know, like, is Emily Van Camp successful? It's like she'll be a lead on a show and then just disappear and not do anything and then come back
she's
and
Captain
have another
America's
lead.
girlfriend, okay? She's Agent 13. But anyway.
And Ryan Cooley and Daniel Clark from Degrassi, The Next Generation were
Another
both
Canadian show.
Yes.
So this was the episode that I really, really liked. This is the one that I remembered the most. There was like these weird zombies that were afraid of water, and it didn't quite make sense because they were wearing suits, like black suits and ties.
Well,
but
let's
the rest
just talk
of the
about how he's playing pinball to begin with.
Oh, that clip,
Like,
that little montage.
There's like a montage of him playing, but it's like he's sort of narrating what's happening in the game, which is not what happens when you play pinball.
Well, I mean, sometimes a lot of pinball, like the advanced pinball games, will have thing if you hit the ball in a certain hole, then like it'll have like a little digital animation on the screen, but it's like, pixelated because it's just those little like one color screens, or like different little pop-ups will pop up, so like potentially zombies could have popped up and you have to hit the pinball at the zombie to knock it over. Like
It seemed like a bit much.
Yeah, it did seem like a bit much, but that montage of him playing it was so funny because it was like a minute and a half because he had to do that exposition that you mentioned,
right?
And it kept showing like the artwork of the pinball machine, and then it would show his hand flicking the button, and then it would show his face, but it just recycled the same images over and over and over again.
I'm trying to actually figure out what this kid's motivation was, because you see him in like the beginning of the episode walking around the mall collecting money, presumably to play pinball.
Yeah,
but then he acts like he really wants a job at this place. So like, does he want money to go play pinball, or does he want to temporarily just play pinball in the back of this shop?
I think he just wants to play pinball. I think that was the point, was that, this kid, because at the beginning of
he's only going to get to play it for while that guy is on his lunch, though, and then he's going to come back and realize that he wasn't actually watching the shop, though.
Right.
Seems a little short-sighted.
Well, he's a kid. But the beginning of the episode had like one of the kids from the Midnight Society playing like a Game Boy, and saying like people are obsessed with their hobbies and playing games, and they take themselves out of the real world. So it was weird. So I don't know, like this was the episode I really liked, and I was a little disappointed. Like I definitely had that nostalgia with the theme song with the weird like horns and stuff, and the swamp, and then the swing that's broken, and it was like,
I don't think I was expecting it to be quite so Canadian.
So we watched an episode from the first season, and I think a fourth season and a fifth season.
Yeah.
And like the effects and the production value definitely got better in the later episodes.
Marginally.
But I wasn't very impressed. Like I remember really, really liking the show.
I remember it being really creepy, and this episode was definitely not creepy.
It wasn't creepy
at all.
No, and then
it was goofy.
It wasn't creepy. It was just weird. Like it was kind of like a
little
Twilight.
bit confusing. It was kind of like, I felt like, am I high? Am I not understanding what's going on here? Because it was just so disjointed.
It was disjointed, and it felt like something from a different TV show. And then what made it creepy was that it had a not a happy ending. So that's the difference between this show and Goosebumps, which I'm sure we'll do Goosebumps in the future. Goosebumps, for the most part, had semi-happy endings where they defeated the monster, but like the Goosebump world was really weird, but in the end of most stories, like the person came out on top and defeated whatever supernatural thing is. This show did have bad endings or not so happy endings like this episode, but then it also, I mean, I guess if you're ready we can transition into the second episode.
Wait, there is one thing I did enjoy about this episode. The moment when it starts raining quarters and he sees them falling into the fountain, and he just jumps right on into the fountain.
He just jumps in instead of bending over and scooping them up.
It would have been so easy, but he like jumped in up to his knees.
Then there's like those zombies in the same scene that they can't go near water, so he just starts like splashing the water onto the... Oh, it was dumb. But like I was saying,
this episode was definitely disappointing. Like once we got past the warm fuzzies of the intro, I'm like being really excited to hear the beginning music, and then the moment when they pick up the sand and are about to throw it into the campfire in the beginning,
Submitted
and
for
you're
their
like, they're
approval,
gonna
the
do
Midnight
it.
Society.
Like
and then
suddenly you
throws the
remember all these things that they said and did, and like it was kind of trippy actually to watch that happen and still realize it was like somewhere in the back of my brain. But the episode itself sort of fell flat for me.
I completely forgot about the opening. Like I didn't remember it all, but as soon as it kicked on, I remembered the horn, like that weird horn, and then the submitted for the approval, the Midnight Society. You know, as soon as they started saying it, I was able to say it, but I didn't remember the Midnight Society at all going into this show.
Yeah, so that was fun. All right, so the Tale of Station 109.1. I think this one actually was a little bit creepy. So it had that going for it.
I thought it was creepy, but then it had no consequences by the end of it, and that's why I was disappointed in this one as well.
Were you expecting there to be like a moral of the story like the first one?
A moral of the story or not a happy ending? Because by the end of this, the episode didn't mean anything. So I'll give the synopsis real quick. So basically in a nutshell, there's this like creepy kid who's like obsessed with death. He's like sleeping in like what looks to be like a coffin. And then he comes down for like breakfast and he's wearing like a black suit and tie. And he's just like this super creepy kid. He goes to like websites about, you know, dead people and everything like that. And Ryan Gosling, the goose, is his older brother. Is
that unusual?
Yes. You're a creeper. But this kid...
Don't look at my history.
So Ryan Gosling like picks on him a little bit. He's the older brother. And I guess they own like a mechanic shop because at some point Ryan Gosling is like working with this mechanic on one car and they're like, oh, look at this car that came in and it's like this old style hearse. So he tells the brother, who's the main character. I don't know who the protagonist of this episode was. Was it Ryan Gosling or the brother who gets lost later on? But
I think it kind of has like a dual track.
Yeah. So Ryan Gosling is like, hey, there's a hearse, and locks the little brother in there. And the little brother like somehow gets the radio on and it turns over to 109.1. And it's a radio station that's supposed to help people who haven't passed on, like when they died, they go either to heaven or hell, find their way to like basically like the DMV for the dead to get sorted where they're supposed to go.
The DMV. That's terrible.
That's basically and then what ended up happening. So Gilbert Gottfried is also in this episode, and he worked at the DMV before working in this afterlife thing. So it was very parallel to the DMV, but this kid was like, what is this 109.1 station? And
does that mean that all those jerks who work at the DMV get stuck in limbo? Because that's kind of satisfying.
So so this kid ends up like finding where this station is and goes in, and they put like they mistake him for this other guy. Just some other guy. So he starts running around the station. He's like, I'm not dead. I'm not dead. He gets out of the station, goes back to his house, and nobody can see him or hear him or anything. So he goes back, and Gilbert Gottfried's like chasing him. He's like, you need to get sorted. And he ends up going on the radio station. He like broadcasts, and Ryan Gosling hears it because he's obsessed with this other radio show. And he hijacks that station, and then Ryan Gosling goes to save his brother by finding the actual dead guy wandering around. And what ends up happening is Gilbert Gottfried doesn't believe him, so he throws this kid through the door, and like, if you're good, you go to heaven. If you're bad, like, it lights up in flames and everything like that, and presumably going to hell. So he throws the kid in, and you're like, oh no, man, this kid, like, he just killed this kid. But the end, like, the doors just shake, the whole place is shaking, and it's a really bad effect because, like, they obviously can't shake a room, so all the actors are just, like, wobbling around on their feet, and the kid gets thrown back through, and he's like, the people in the other room want to talk to you. You made a mistake. And ultimately there was no consequence to this story. Like
right.
Like
it just spit him back out.
It was a lot creepier because the lights kept like the color of most of the episode was like this weird red, dark red, and dark rooms as he's hiding. And it was kind of creepy because he's like running around and all these people are trying to capture him. And because he thinks he's dead, and he ends up being like this weird ghost kind of creature for a little bit. But ultimately there was no consequence. Like,
it was a good episode right up till the very end when they completely removed the stakes.
Exactly. And that was a problem that I had. And then it was just really corny at the end when like the whole place was shaking, and you could just see Gilbert Gottfried was like waving his arms like he's falling around, but he wasn't moving his legs or his hips or anything like that. So it was just really dumb. So they were just doing shaky cam and like people waving their arms like they're about to fall over.
Gilbert Gottfried's like, I'm gonna make all these non-union chumps wobble around. All right, so let's move on to The Tale of the Chameleons.
Ooh, with the Maori sisters.
The Maori sisters, they were everywhere. They had a good run.
Sister.
Doesn't one of them have a talk show now?
Yeah, one of them's on like, it's not The View, but a show similar to The View.
And then one of them like married a white dude, and apparently that's something that
I don't know about
she
that.
deserves a magazine interview for.
That's cool. Good for her.
I mean, I married a white dude.
Yeah, but you look white.
That's true.
You're passing.
I'm past. Oh my god.
We'll
I
probably
hate
cut
when
this
people
part out.
say that.
I know.
Anyway.
So nutshell version of this one, Tia or Tamara. I think it's Tia. My note says chameleon bites Tia or Tamara, but I found out that Tia was the good one and Tamara was the bad one. Or it might have been reversed.
Oh.
I don't know.
Either way.
But she's at like this pet store and she's there with like her friend, and there's this like really creepy kid who's just like being a kind of a jerk to a bunch of the animals, and then they go and look at this chameleon and he says some weird thing, and he's just like, he sounds like he corrects them on something. Like apparently he has like this really vast animal knowledge, and then this chameleon bites her, and then he says this weird thing like,
bite you once, bites you twice, little water, pay the price.
Yeah. And so this chameleon like bites her, and she's like,
well, like, okay,
like,
first of all, this chick like shoves her finger in the chameleon's face, repeatedly pokes it in the head, and then it tries to bite. And of course they like give the chameleon the little finger, so it's like, is that a mealworm? And then like it's a misrepresentation of our wonderful little green friends.
So yeah, it bites her, and then it gets this really funny scene because it like, she like holds it and like is like shaking it, and it's very obviously like a weird toy.
It's like a
and
rubber
then like
chameleon.
flings it. She like flings it, and somehow this chameleon gets out of the pet store, gets into the parking lot, goes across the street to where her mom is grocery shopping, and then like somehow her mom gets scared or something like that, drops the bag of groceries. The chameleon gets in the bag of groceries, bites her again later, and becomes
well, no, there's this whole sequence of like the music builds up and you think the chameleon's about to bite someone else. You think it's going to bite the mom, and then it doesn't. And you think it's going to bite the friend, and it doesn't.
And then it bites
finally
her.
It bites her.
Oh, and like there's a subplot where like the mom and Tia or Tamara does not get along. Like she wants to get like this dress, and she wants to go to like this party.
Tia's being kind of a jerk.
Oh no, she was being like a brat.
Total jerk. She's
So-
like, just let me grow up and do what I want. Okay, listen, Missy, you are like 16 and you're living under
No,
their
she was
roof.
even younger. She was younger than that. She had to be like 13 or 14. This was pre sister.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, it was.
No, it wasn't.
Or it had to be towards the beginning of it.
No.
Because this was like 90. So this show ended in America in like 1997.
I think she was about 16 in this.
Maybe. But so what ends up happening is this thing ends up biting her, and then grows into a full-size Tamara or Tia, whatever the opposite one was.
A clone of her.
And like they have this like little interaction.
Shifts.
And then they like put water on her, and then she turns into a chameleon, and then this chameleon is taking her role in her life, and she's like a much nicer daughter, and she's
okay,
like,
one thing I don't understand about this. So once she has been bitten by the chameleon, if she gets splashed with water, she will turn into the chameleon.
correct.
But the first time the chameleon turned into her, it had to get splashed with water, didn't it?
Well, no, it had to get no.
It just bit her and then like waited to morph into her.
I guess no, it bit her twice. Maybe it got wet. Maybe it went to the sink or something. I can't remember.
I thought that it got wet and that turned it into her. So then you would think like. And then
no, that's what
the
happens
end-
because it
and then
makes
towards
sense.
the end, they're avoiding the water because they don't want to change back, and neither one of them wants to change
well,
back into
that's
the
the
chameleon.
thing that doesn't make sense. So
Like,
what
if they get splashed, do they always just keep changing?
well,
like, what's
you
the big
completely
deal?
jumped the gun.
Sorry.
So basically what ends up happening is somehow the friend who's like spent the night figures it out, because the parents are like loving this new version of their daughter because she's super agreeable and, you know, goes and gets like this more conservative dress, and she's
The
like, it's
mom
beautiful.
buys her the dress.
Yeah, the
and
mom
she
buys her
loves
this
it,
more, and
which
she
I think
loves
is
it.
cute.
No, it was cute. It was just fine. So this chameleon, so Tia or Tamara is now a chameleon, and the friend helps her get back at this original chameleon by biting her, and then she like hides the new one in a box of chameleons. So apparently I don't know how this happened, but she had a box of chameleons, so I don't know if
she ordered it from the pet store. Presumably, because like she makes a phone call.
Oh, maybe that's what happened.
The chameleon sister makes a phone call and tries to play it off to the friend like it was nothing. And then the doorbell rings and the package arrives. And the friend is like, oh, you got the dress anyway. Oh, you are kind of shady.
But she's got all these chameleons. And so she ends up hiding.
Where did they come from? Like, who did she call that they were like down to deliver a box full of chameleons with no holes and no food and no bedding?
And so what ends up happening is she gets bitten once, and so she knows the deal. She knows she can't get bitten again.
It's her family, though, apparently, in the box.
Yeah, no, it's supposed to be her family. So what ends up happening is the friend puts the original person in the box of the chameleons, and then acts like she's going to destroy the box. And so the chameleon human person gets it, opens it up like, okay, my family's safe, sticks her hand in to like pet them, and then the original one bites her. So she gets to become, and then gets wet. So now they're both, you know, human again, or look human. And there's this, you know, that classic thing like, I'm the real one. No, I'm the real one. Shoot her. So
also,
this girl
they happen to still have a functioning well in their backyard in suburbia.
Exactly. So they got this like water gun thing. And so it's like, or the hose, and it's like, just spray them both. Like, I'm thinking spray them both because it shouldn't matter. But like you brought up, so what ends up happening is there's this like twist ending. So the chameleon chick grabs the box and she's like, I'm the real one. Would the chameleon do this? And like throws the box in the well. But what ends up happening, the twist at the end is, so the friend sprays the other one, turns back into a chameleon, and throws it down the well because supposedly getting it wet is going to trap it, I guess. So what ends up happening is
it's so confusing, though.
It was really confusing.
Like, when's the cutoff for the water changing them? Like, how many times is this water going to change them before they stay that way?
Exactly, because this person could never take a shower again, right?
Right.
So what ends up happening, so you think that getting them wet is going to trap them as the chameleon or whatever, right? So the whole time I'm thinking, like, why not just spray both of them, and one will turn a chameleon and one will stay human? That's
and
not
like,
what ends up happening.
how much water? Does she have to drink water? Like,
No.
do sponge baths count?
No, it's any water. So what ends up happening is you think everything's all fine and good. She threw them down, so she's like, oh, it's got to be the other one. Sprays, turns into chameleon, and then at the end there's this twist, and you see her eyes turn a little green, and then she goes to the well, and she brings it up, and it turns out she like threw them perfectly enough where they ended up in the bucket that's in the well.
Chameleons can swim, so if the bucket was in the well, they would have been able to climb into it.
I guess, but like the whole thing was the original one still there? Did she kill the original, human? It didn't really make sense.
I felt unresolved at the end.
I did too. Like, I felt like it was a cop out, and this show's the ending didn't make sense, and like, I'm fine with it having
clearer, like more clearly defined what the stakes were and what the getting wet would mean and for how long, it could have been pretty good, because it was like a little bit creepy in that like there was no resolution at the end. Like, the bad guy wins,
fine with that,
which I kind of like
the pinball. Like, I'm fine with not every episode being a happy ending, and it makes sense. This is supposed to be creepy, and scary movies don't always have a happy ending. Like,
although
even
this one kind of does have a little bit of a cautionary tale, like, don't be a jerk to your parents,
I guess. But overall, like, I'm gonna say ruined my childhood on this one.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with you. I really loved hearing that intro and, hearing submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society and the thing with the fire, because like those are the things that were kind of iconic about this as a kid. But watching this, I'm not even sure why I liked this. Like, especially the episode with Tia and Tamara, because that was the one that I remembered most vividly. I definitely remembered the chameleon and, like, actually a lot of the plot points in it. But now that I've rewatched it, like, how did I follow that as a kid? I'm
I
not
don't
really
know.
sure if I even knew what was going on.
The production values were garbage too. Like they were
So,
like Pete and Pete level
Michael,
garbage.
I am not done with my summary.
Oh, I'm sorry, honey.
So definitely going back and watching it, I think it was a little bit funnier now that I can see just how painfully Canadian it really was and just how low the production value is. So it has that camp factor that makes it entertaining, but it definitely did ruin it to some extent for me. But I definitely expected them to be slightly higher production value.
See, I'm gonna say it is ruined for me. Like I can't even, like you mentioned, you not being able, you don't think you would have been able to follow as a kid. I can't see what I liked about it as a kid. So out of the 40, 50 episodes that this show had, there was only one episode that I remembered vividly, and that was the pinball one. I've talked about it, I think, in previous episodes. You and I have talked about doing this series for a long time, since we've started this podcast, and I've been talking about that episode, and even that one episode that I remembered was a disappointment for me.
Yeah, so I'm going to say this one did ruin our childhoods.
Yep, I'm calling it.
We can hold fondly the theme song and cherish the Midnight Society.
You know what the other thing I did like about it? So not just the thing that I actually remembered, and as soon as the theme song started, I was like, oh, the match thing where like you just see a hand with the match and then it lights and then it shows the Are You Afraid of the Dark kind of sweeps across the screen. That part was still cool. But yeah, other than the beginning, the intro.
I mean, there are only so many urban legends that can be respun into genuinely creepy campfire stories. So there've got to be the good ones out there, but it's probably a needle in a haystack situation with this series. If you can get past the really bad production value.
I couldn't. I was cringing. Like, we originally planned on watching, I think we even said at the top of the episode that we were going to watch like 4 or 5 of these.
Nope.
I can only handle 3.
Any more than 3.
I didn't want to watch. I didn't want to watch a second or a third one.
Right. All right.
Didn't want to watch
so, what are we going to be watching next week?
So our next episode is going to be a special one. We're actually going to have Dustin from Remake Rewind, my co-host on that show, is going to guest. He's gonna guest star. So Katrina recently guest starred on my podcast Remake Rewind, and Dustin and I thoroughly enjoyed doing that episode. We did Dinner for Schmucks and the dinner game, or Le Dîner de Con, and we had a blast, the 3 of us recording that episode. So we wanted to bring Dustin in on this podcast. So we asked him what we were gonna do. He definitely wanted to do like an old school Nickelodeon TV show, but we just did this one, unfortunately. So he just selected The Sandlot, that classic baseball movie. You know, You're Killing Me, Smalls. I'm excited to watch it. I bought it on Blu-ray for like $1.99 on Black Friday like 5 years ago, and I've been begging you to watch it with me. And I know you like this movie, but you've never been in the mood to watch it. So I'm really glad we're gonna watch it.
And it's one of those things that you kind of save it just to keep it special.
Nah, we're gonna watch it. Where can all our fans find your stuff?
I am all over the internet at Katrinaosity, especially on YouTube. Go check me out there and click like on all my videos.
And you can, my social media doesn't matter, but you can follow MDXpods, and everything that we do is on our website, MDXpods.com. You can also check us out on Facebook. You just type in MDXpods. And we're on Instagram and Twitter at MDXpods. Please like and share this episode on your social media. And we keep forgetting to ask for this. I don't think we started until last episode, but like us on iTunes, write a review. That helps us out a lot and get seen on more of the trending pages. So do that. Take care of us. And thank you guys for listening.
Thanks for listening, and make sure to check back in to hear what we have to say about The Sandlot.